Chapter 2, Lesson 5 in Geometry, Proving Angles Congruent. We're going to look at some more angle theorems in this video, and then we'll use those angle theorems to then create some equations and we'll solve for variables. In the last lesson we looked at vertical angles and we talked about proofs, and we proved that vertical angles are equal. We're going to look at a few more theorems, and now I will explain why they're true, but we won't go through the proofs on these. The congruent supplements theorem, supplement should remind us of the word supplementary. So if two angles are supplements or supplementary to the same angle, then the two angles have to be congruent. So if they're supplements of the same angle, then they're congruent. So a little picture here. If we took this angle here and we added it to this angle here, it would equal 180, so these would be supplementary. Then if I took this other angle here and added it to this angle here, it also would equal 180, making this supplementary to this. So now this angle here and this angle here are both supplementary to the same angle, which means they have to be the same measure, because if you're adding a value to the same angle, the value would have to be the same if it's going to equal the same. So because both of them added to this equal 180, the measure of this angle doesn't change, so these angles have to be the same in order for them to add up to 180. So these angles therefore must be congruent. So if they're supplementary to the same angle, then the two angles have to be congruent to each other. That's the congruent supplement theorem. Then in the congruent complement theorem, it's the same idea, only complementary means two angles that add up to 90. So if we have this angle here and we add it to this angle here and it equals 90, and then we take this angle here and add it to the same angle and get 90, well then these two angles have to be congruent. They can't be different because they both added to the same number equal 90, so they would have to be the same as well. You then have some other theorems in your book, and there's no names to this, so you're going to have to, if we use this in a proof, as we talked about in the last video, you'll have to just write this out. So all right angles are congruent. So if you know you have two right angles, then you'll know that they are congruent. If they're right angles, then they have to be equal to each other. So this is a right angle, and I know that because of this marking. This is a right angle because I know it's because of this marking. So I know they're both right angles, therefore they must be congruent. Another theorem, again, that has no name, so we would have to write it out if we're using it in a proof. If two angles are congruent, meaning they're equal to each other, and they're supplementary, meaning they add up to 180, well, the only way for the two angles to be equal and add up to 180 at the same time is if they both measure 90, making them right angles. So if two angles are congruent and supplementary, then they would each have to be a right angle. Okay, so if you have this angle and you add it to this angle and we know it equals 180, then these have to be right angles. So those are the additional angle theorems that we'll use throughout the year. The vertical angle theorem is the one we'll use the most often. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to stop this video here, let you chew on that a little bit, and then I'll do the third video where we will do some examples of applying these angle theorems that we've been studying.